Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us for another one of our HFA webinars. And I think today is going to be full of takeaways that you're going to be able to use probably when you get off of this call. We are talking about leveraging technologies today to close sales. So this is not just about technological upgrades. This is really about how to use them and how to make sure that you're bringing more dollars into the enterprise on a daily basis. And we've got a really great crew here. I'm going to tell you more about them in just a second, but I do want to mention that every one of our webinars is available at myhfa.org. We have a library of them there. You'll never miss out. You can share them. Highly recommend that. If you want to show them to your staff, you can do that as well. So always know that that is something that is available. This one will be recorded today as well. So let me get right to it because we got a lot to cover today. Our three guests today, we start with Justin Lehman. Justin is joining us from Interiors Home. He's their Director of Technology. Justin, thank you for being here. Jared Simon is a VP of Simon's Furniture up in the greater Boston area. He's both of those two, by the way, are now generational successions in their stores. And Lenny Kay is joining us, and he's with, he's got a few hats he wears, but Unlimited Furniture is the co-founder of, and he has a huge technological background, and that's why we're happy to have Lenny joining us as well. So guys, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. I always judge these webinars based upon how many questions we get in from the people that register, and holy smokes, I mean, we have once again really touched a nerve here, and there's a lot of interest. So we've got a ton of great questions. I want to encourage any of you that are with us right now and you want to put a question in the chat, do it, and we'll do our best to get to you. But I'm going to start out with just kind of a round robin question here and just kind of get right into it. So Justin, let me just ask you, since today we're talking about leveraging technologies to close the sale, just each of you, I want you to give me a good example right now of how you're seeing that work where you are right now. So Justin, I'll start with you as far as, you know, just you don't have to give me 10 of them, but just like one or two, and then we'll work our way around the room.
So it's just kind of a general outlook as to where we want to use technology to help close the sale. Is we want to use it, generally speaking, to try to make the process quicker and to try to bring as many tools to the salesperson that they can have with them wherever they are in the store, so that they can spend more time with the customer. And so we are working on just developing the tools and giving them the tools so they can work with the customer, whether it's in the customer's home, whether it's from the salesperson, whether they're at home trying to do some work virtually, or whether they're anywhere in our one of our two showrooms, that they have all the tools that they need to get pricing, to view orders, view inventory, and to have that with them wherever they are and at all times.
So efficiencies and ease of process. Love that. Jared, what about you?
Pretty much the same thing, is that trying to give the sales staff as much information as possible and be able to access that information from as many different locations as possible, whether that's being able to follow up on sales through our lead system that we use, from whether the sales staff's at home, if they're on their day off, just being able to kind of get information out there from the salespeople to the customer and follow up on quotes and leads, and just really make sure that you're, you know, getting every last sale out of there and using technology to keep yourself organized.
So nothing falling through the cracks then. Gotcha. So that's awesome. Lenny, what about you?
I have to agree with Justin and Jared. We're in the same boat. You know, a company 17 years ago actually started with phone sales. So we're very sensitive to people buying things remotely, not in the showroom, and that happens to be all the trend today. So our goal is to have, you know, one system, one CRM that has every customer engagement recorded, their phone calls, their store visits, their chats, their website visits. So our salespeople could close sales on the phone, because I'd say so many people, they go into the showroom, they'd like to purchase at home, and maybe they're calling from home without coming to the showroom. And we need to make sure that our salespeople feel as comfortable on the phone as they do in the showroom.
So let me ask you this then, as far as, you know, technology is great. I mean, there's no doubt about it that the advances have just done wonderful things in many aspects to our retail sector, no doubt about it. But you also, the one thing that's interesting about what you guys have all said is that this is also, though, not about taking the human touch out of it. So Justin, what's the balance there? Because, you know, you want these tools, but I'm assuming you're going to tell me that it does not replace good training and all that kind of good stuff. So how do you balance the tech, but the human touch that is so important to our business?
I think trying to just look at ways where they can complement each other, where the tech can add to the relationship. And that could be something as simple as, hey, knowing how your customer prefers to communicate, whether it's through text or whether through its email, or whether it's, getting our salesperson a tablet so they can get the customer pricing without having to walk away from the customer. So they can actually, in some ways, a tablet then can actually help enhance their personal relationship, their face-to-face relationship, because it's keeping them together longer without the salesperson having to, go walk away from the customer to go find a resource at one part of the store and then having to walk away again to find a resource at another part of the store.
Okay, and Jared, what do you feel about that as far as how those two things meld together?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it, is that we didn't like our sales staff having to leave a customer at a sofa to go check if it's in stock or check on a different price, or how does this, if I change the fabric, how is this going to affect it? Or if they're looking at a sofa, what's the price for the love seat, the chair, the ottoman, the ancillary items? And by having our staff carrying around tablets all the time, they never have to leave the customer. So they can be taking notes, getting information, gathering it, putting it into a lead system. And even if that customer doesn't buy at that very moment, you can at least follow up with it. You're intelligent in what you're speaking about in the future. So if you talk to 20 customers on a Saturday that's really busy, if you took good notes and paid attention to what the customers were looking at Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, when it's a little quieter in the showroom, you have a whole list of customers that you can follow up with and turn into sales. So that way, on the weekend, it might be too busy to, take care of that custom order customer or special order customer. But by taking good notes and providing good service, they may just want to come back in one day during the week just to see what you suggested for them. And you can kind of have that personal interaction.
Yeah, you bring up a really great point, and Lenny, I'll kind of throw that your way here. So is it important in these systems, whatever one you use, that it's not just providing these tools to the salespeople, but what Jared just talked about is really that gathering of data and intel. Is that something that these technologies right now can also do, so that if the sale doesn't happen right then, you have in some ways collected the key data to make sure that you might be able to close it tomorrow?
I think the general, there are all kinds of technology that exists in our industry, or even outside of our industry. So I think the data collection tool, typically called a CRM, like a customer relationship management tool. So that would be the tool that would connect everything that exists in the furniture ecosystem. So it's your phone calls, your text messages, your web inquiries, your in-store visits, your in-home visits, anything and everything. But that's just one part of the ecosystem. So a furniture store will typically have a website. That's a different type of technology. A point of sale system, another type of technology. Even the phone, we integrate our phone system with our CRM, but even the phone is another piece of technology that could provide value. So you have traffic counters. So I think the CRM component of the technology ecosystem needs to have all the consumer engagements in one place. But that's only one piece of the overall puzzle for a furniture store from a technology perspective.
Here we were trying to make things easier, and you've now just totally complicated it. No, I mean, that's true though. Justin, how do you balance that? Because Lenny's got a great point. You can spend and spend and spend on these technologies. How do you pick and choose? What did you guys do as far as, and again, we're trying to lend this to other retailers here to help them. How have you guys decided which technology is the one that you put your initial sort of stake in the ground and build from there? What's kind of the heartbeat of that? Is it the CRM, or how have you guys approached that?
Yeah, that's a great question. To be honest, that's something we're still working through. That's a place where we know is a growth and opportunity area for us, is finding a good CRM. And the challenge we found is that, as much as you'd like to integrate everything, is you also need to balance what's easy to use and what's easy to focus on. And so we definitely have, in some cases, we have some still old school approaches for measuring some of that stuff, because we found that either the user entry wasn't there to get the right balance that we need, where we're spending more time logging information than we are actually following up on it. So I'd say we're still looking for that, because there are a lot of options there, but I think ideally from a structure perspective, the less sources, the better. And so I think anytime that you can combine sources, if you can get CRM software from your ERP or from some other service you're using, I think that's the ideal.
Well, and I wanted to say to you, I appreciate you being that candid, because this is an evolution. Not everybody on this call or who's watching this webinar have it all figured out yet. So let me just ask a follow-up there, because that's a great point. So in knowing that, how are you guys, what's sort of your approach to that, to trying to figure out what to add next and when? Because I think that would be super instructive to everybody.
So I think it comes from mainly just trying to figure out where your weaknesses are, and making sure you know where those weaknesses are, and making sure you have a pulse for that. So, if we know that our sales staff is doing a good job of following up with their customers, and we know that by our sales managers and how they're keeping in touch, and whether they're having those one-on-one interactions with the salespeople, we can identify whether we think that's a weakness or not. And so for us, it's been an issue that, okay, we have other places where we're going to focus, because we've identified that we have other procedures in place for making sure those tasks are getting done, to making sure that follow-up is happening. So it's really just a matter of identifying where you have a weakness, and we all know that we have limited time and limited resources, sometimes human resources, and it's a matter of, okay, that's working for now, we're going to keep that, and we're going to put our focus elsewhere.
Okay, Jared, how have you guys tackled that? Because you do have to kind of pick and choose here. You can't just pull off the shelf a technology, an entire program that's going to fit everything that you need. So how have you guys managed that?
Exactly. One of the big things we've done in the past year and a half really has been trying to aggregate all the information, because what we've found is when you're looking at these online inquiries, or we always are trying to get people to engage online, whether that's requesting a coupon, live chatting, maybe putting an item in a cart to request a quote, or maybe even buying it online. And you gather all this information, it comes from many different sources. So you could have a live chat, a quote request, a sale. You could also have a message on another lead system that comes in, like an engagement software like Perk. And all of a sudden you find that you have 3 salespeople working on 3 leads for the same person, because it's not aggregating it. So what we've been able to do is use software to kind of pull all the information, whether it's like what Lenny talks about with a phone call, with a lead online of someone inquiring about a product, or requesting a quote, and you'd be surprised how many times it's the same person who might ask you the same question 3 different places. And by aggregating that, you can kind of have one person respond to all that customer's inquiry at the time. Or if that customer requests a coupon and then 3 weeks later goes in and buys something, and the salesperson was interacting, you can kind of see if they're following up and doing what they're supposed to be. So it's having that information all in one place is really huge to build that personal relationship with a customer, because that's the only thing that kind of differentiates us from an online store. I always use the analogy that, a cup of coffee, if you've looked in the last, 30 years, has gone down. You can get a cup of coffee for 25 cents at a gas station, and it tastes pretty decent, but Starbucks is doing a lot more business with $5 and $6 cups of coffee. It's because a lot of times you know the same person who's making your coffee, and you have a personal relationship, and you can charge a lot more for that service. And I think that's the same thing in the furniture business, that if you're a retailer, your service is to help the customer, find furnishings for their store. And by being able to communicate effortlessly, so they're not just, feeling like they're calling in and explaining what they're doing to the same person over and over again, by having a kind of holistic view of the customer, you can build up a personal relationship and increase confidence with the customer that you're the person that they should buy furnishings from.
Lenny, is it, Jared makes a great point that in the information in one place, aggregating it is really important. But is that truly possible for a lot of retailers, or is it tough right now to pull all those into one place, because as you mentioned a moment ago, there's just different systems that you need for different aspects of your business?
It's a very interesting question for me specifically. And I'll try to answer the best I could. So first, as a disclaimer, we have a separate business where we actually sell software. We actually sell a CRM system into the furniture industry, and we have lots of stores and e-commerce companies that use it. And it precisely does that. It pulls it all in. Every customer interaction, we connect to all the technology. But I think, the original question was on the ROI and how do you decide what to do first? And I think, in my opinion, I kind of want to just get back to that. I think CRM, like what Jared describes, is really for very mature stores and for very mature sales teams. It's not for everyone. And the reason I say that is because we have lots of customers who are big and small who use our software. And the people who get the most benefit are usually more mature. And what I mean by that is if you're a small independent furniture store, the priorities are different. So the number one technology for ROI is having a really solid website, because that is critical today. I think once you get past the website, you want to have a point of sale system. So maybe not on the sales side, but on the operation side, there are more people who have websites than point of sale systems. There are many, many, many furniture stores that don't have point of sale systems. So those are the basics. So I think for a smaller independent store, you got to have a website, you got to have a POS system. From there, you could think about what is the next level. The next level is, maximizing the opportunities. And then maybe you need something that could help you get more leads, maybe like Perk or maybe some other engagement tool that just helps you do more business. And then I think once you've already reached all the basic milestones, then I think you're probably thinking, I have the website, I have the POS, I have lots of leads. Now, how do I unify that? How do I put all of that together into one place? And then I think CRM is probably the last piece of the puzzle.
But I don't want to depress people, because you don't have to wait to get to that point of all of that maturity, if you will, using your terminology, before you can have success. Because what I've heard you all say, however, is this has got to start with the salesperson. That all of this is tools, putting it in their hands. Lenny, you talked about how starting with phone sales years ago, et cetera. So the people piece of it is obviously critical. So for those out there that are still having some difficulty getting adoption to some of these new technologies, because we've had some comments that just came in, folks have said, wow, we make sure that everything is on an iPad, and so it's right there. That's great, but the person holding the iPad is the key here. So Justin, how do you make sure that you get adoption from these terrific salespeople you have to use the technology? Because if we're going to leverage it, we got to make sure that they're using it.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and there's a couple of ways that we do it. I mean, first of all, I think is you got to get them comfortable with it. They've got to be comfortable with it if you want them to adopt it. If they're scared of it, if they're afraid they're going to break something, they're never going to adopt it. Two is, I think the key is just repetition. It takes using something, whether it's a piece of software, whether it's a physical device. It's hands-on, and from a training perspective, I think it's about trying to give them hands-on experience as much as possible. And I think you have to be ready to break your groups and train your groups into smaller groups so that you can give them that hands-on time when you're training them on something. So I think that's kind of one of the biggest things to adoption is letting them try it, letting them see that they can't break it, and just having time spent with it is the only way you're going to get them to adopt it. And then second point I would have would be just to make sure to emphasize the value it brings to the salesperson and the value it brings to the customer.
It's interesting because we have, I'm just looking at a list of the questions we've had here, and it's like how to better train the employees to use it, how to help them feel comfortable if they're not technologically savvy, how to just how to get people comfortable and to utilize it. Because if a store is going to invest, you want people to utilize it. Jared, what have you seen as far as that goes? You talked about how you've brought a lot of technology there. So are there some caveats you would throw out there about making sure that the employee is comfortable in how they use it?
I would say every person is in there has their own personal relationship with technology, how much they use in their daily life, whether they're you can have older people who are very tech savvy, and you can have young people that don't know anything about technology or how to use it. And it's kind of, each person is almost unique in that aspect, where you have to really get them more comfortable using tools. Like we've transitioned away from having printed out manuals located in sections of the building that you go walk to having it all on a tablet. And it takes a little bit, at first our goal was to offer both. So you come up with a digital aspect that you know is easier, but it's going to take a lot more time for people to get used to using, but you still maintain that separate, printed copy per se. And you try to transition people over time, because there's definitely a learning curve in terms of how quickly, even myself, sometimes I pull out a piece of paper because it's just habitual, or paper price list. I try not to, but it's sometimes it just happens to be the way it is. But we tried to do what we did for almost a year was to have mirroring systems. So we had our existing print versions of everything, and we had our digital, and now we're moving 100% into the digital and getting away from the printed copies. And
Okay.
it takes some time for the staff to learn each one, and then you really got to demonstrate the value to customers. Like we have customers, sales staff that'll be inputting information into a CRM and not really seeing a whole lot come out of it. Then all of a sudden, there's an online sale comes in and they get credit for it because they were working with that customer last week on live chat, and they talked to him and said, when I buy, they left it there, and the salesperson followed up, and then they put the order in. So now the salesperson sees a clear connection between working those online leads and interacting with a customer digitally and sales in their pocket. And that's the biggest thing you have to demonstrate, is that, wow, this makes you money, because then people will participate.
Lenny, what's been your experience as far as the adoption question, since again, we have so many of these questions that have come in from other retailers?
So, the first part is we try to tackle this during the recruiting process. So we have a very high standard for computer literacy. And we actually test people, everyone who applies for any job, aside from warehouse jobs, has to pass a computer literacy test, plus English and math tests, just so we know that, because a lot of the communication is nonverbal. It's a lot of emailing and texting. We want to be sure they know how to put a sentence together. And we had issues with college graduates who couldn't do a good job with it. So the first thing is just making sure that, we have some objective measure of their qualifications for computer literacy and ability to use those tools. And then the second, it's very much what Justin said. It's just really committing to training them and like spending time, and it's extremely difficult. It's very, very difficult. And I think the biggest blocker for success is time, because the managers who are responsible, and we have lots of people in our organization, and the managers who are responsible for doing the work, sometimes they're wearing 5 different hats. They have lots of different priorities, and they don't always have the time to sit with every new hire and make sure that they're using the system properly. So it's just making the time available and making sure that they know it's a top priority. And ultimately, it ends up being similar to what Jared said, where they see success and then they get more engaged. And one of the things that we did is we have a lot of sales situations where it's a commission split. So it's 2 salespeople working with 1 customer, and they split the commission. And we only qualified them for a split if they recorded the initial interaction in our CRM system. And if they did, then they get a split. So after they lose a couple, the compliance becomes very substantial.
And have you not changed that, even with the difficulty in finding people to come to work now, as far as salespeople? Are you not in any way compromising that effort to test people for computer literacy? Are you holding steady on that, even though it might be tough to fill some positions right now?
Mark, I'm very impressed with that question. Let me start by saying that. So the answer is we flexed a little bit. So our computer literacy test is out of 20, and normally we allow 18, 19 to 20 in order to qualify for whatever the next steps are in the hiring process. Now we're allowing it to go down to 17. So a little bit of a flex, and it's only due to the current market conditions for labor.
Gotcha. I appreciate that very, very much. Jared, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to add in one thing Lenny said that was very important is make time for the training. And as a smaller store, one of the things that we have is, okay, I got these many people coming in to check orders. We're overrun on the floor. We're short in the warehouse. We have a delivery issue, and those become your priority. But making the priority to train the staff on how to use the technology that makes them more efficient allows them to handle more customers, and ultimately allows you to free yourself up to do other things. So, taking that time out of your day to do the training is actually giving you more time in the future, if that makes sense. And I thought Lenny said you got to make time for it. You really have to. Really.
So So here's the first, I mean, there's a lot of great questions, but this is one I'm just going to throw as a toss up here and see who wants to jump on this one. This one just literally came in. As new technology is adopted, do you release staff that does not meet an acceptable use of that new technology?
I've had staff that's with me for many years, and we never have done anything like that. We just try to encourage, and we've done the dual systems to try to act as like training wheels as you get through to the ultimate goal. And we found that because most of my staff has been with me for 10 plus years, they'll find that if they see, like Lenny said, that it's in their best interest to participate and it will help them make money, they'll do it and learn. And people want to be successful, I think, and they want to learn, and they want to provide better service, and most people want to make more money too. And in an incentive-based pay structure, it's in their best interest in the long run.
And one of the things I would say to that is, and I think it's a great question, but in the same respect, that you don't have to necessarily separate that out. I mean, performance is performance, and if they're not using the technology, and if they're not growing, then it all kind of fits together. Justin, any thoughts about that as well?
Yeah, nothing we've ever had to do, nothing ever we've seriously considered doing. I think like anything, it's also you're gonna have some flexibility depending on the success of that salesperson. If you have somebody that is lagging behind and being hesitant to take up new technologies and new tools that might help them, you might look at it a little more differently. So you might have some flexibility with somebody who's really selling well, but having some trouble adopting it if you see it's not hurting their job performance. But I think that could change a little bit in perspective if you had somebody that's affecting their job performance because they're not adopting, they're not able to develop the leads or track their leads or have the systems that they need to succeed.
Yeah, I'm not an HR expert, but I think if it's overall performance versus one of those little adopter things, it's probably a little bit cleaner as well, just from a safety and compliance standpoint. But I'm not an expert. I'm just throwing that one out there. But let's get a little bit granular here because we've had a question that came in that I think is great to kind of get us a little bit on a little bit of a different area. And oh, by the way, for those of you that are just joining in, we're almost halfway through. We've been just blasting through this because it's a great conversation with Justin Lehman from Interiors Home, Jared Simon of Simon's Furniture, and Lenny Kay, who's with Unlimited Furniture. And the question is, okay, so if we're talking about leveraging technologies to close a sale, a lot of that does start on the website. So let's talk about that. Lenny, I'm going to go to you first because you talked about the first piece of the puzzle being a solid website, which sounds great, but what are the things that you want to make sure that you have on your website that will lead to more conversion? What are those things that are key in your mind?
So, complicated question, but I think the most obvious thing is you want to make it easy to find things. So I think that goes without saying. I think specific to conversion, I think most, I would imagine that people who are watching the webinar in their office or at home, these are furniture store owners. So we're not talking about pure play e-commerce guys. And the difference is, Wayfair, Overstock, Amazon, most of their furniture sales are very small. So the average order size is maybe $200, where I think our average order size is much higher. I know our average order size is about $2,000, whether in store or on the web. So as a result, I think the customers who are spending more money are much more likely to want to talk on the phone to someone, even if they're shopping from home. So I think it's very important to have contact information very prominently displayed in the header of the website and at the top of the page that doesn't move. So regardless, if you scroll down on the website, you could still see the phone number and it's easy for people to call you. The other thing is we have to recognize that today consumers, depending, if I had to generalize, I think depending on the age of the consumer, they have different communication preferences, where some people prefer to call and some people prefer to chat and some people prefer to text. So you should have all the options available on your website. So you have to operate on the customer terms. So if they want to call, you should have a phone number. And then if you'd like to chat, there should be a chat option and there should be a texting option. Sometimes either text or chat, sometimes both. Make it really, really comfortable for the customer to reach you in their preferred methodology.
And out of those things you just mentioned, really chat's about the only thing that is any sort of an add-on too. You're talking about good basic information that you don't have to, you're not upgrading anything at that point. It's the information. I love what you said about ease of navigation to just make it a better flow through the process. Jared, with that said, what do you guys give us some real-time information here? What do you guys do as far as that to try to make this part easier for everybody?
It's a lot of it is related to, I think, online is having a good content on your website too. It's the same thing as navigation as well. With just basics in your website, if you can't find products that you're looking for, the customer, just sees one item or only a couple things, you're not providing you're not showing everything that you possibly could offer to a consumer, which I think is important online. And a lot of it's having that information so that they're trying to decide what store, like Lenny said, they want to talk to someone. A lot of times if they're going to spend $2,000 on a sofa or $1,000 on a sofa, they want to, talk to someone about it to make sure that it's good. They may want to come see it in person. But if they look on your website and they find nothing that's in their dimensions that they want for a sofa of 85 inches, let's say, they're just not going to even come into your store. You're not even going to get to the next step in that shopping process.
Okay. Justin, what about you?
I think one of the really important things as it relates to the website is making sure that your website accurately reflects who you are as a store. That when people see your website, that the banners they're seeing, the products they're seeing very well match what you have on your floor, whether it's keeping your images updated or, mention of, whether you're locally owned, where you whether want to call that out on your front page, call out any design services and things. And so you want to make sure that when customers go into your website, they have a good idea of what to expect when they come into your store. And I think that can help to make sure that the people that are seeing your website and coming into your store afterwards are kind of connecting the dots there, and that the two things align and look like they belong.
Just
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, one more thing was that
No, go.
the experience inside the store and online is huge, because the customers online are going to decide to come in store. And if you create a good experience, the people walking in your store then already know what your price points are, what services you offer, and you're getting more qualified people in your showroom. So once again, it's more efficient when you're selling.
One of the questions that has come in that clearly when we're talking about any store owner investing in technology, et cetera, is really ROI. And this question that just came in is how do you continually measure the effects of technology on selling? So that's a little bit of ROI, but it's also just really kind of asking how do you continually measure the effectiveness? Lenny, do you want to start that one?
I don't really have a good answer to that, only because in our world, we build our own technology and we just don't know life any other way. So anecdotally,
what you compare it to, in other words, is what you're saying, right?
That's right. But anecdotally, I could tell you, we get a huge competitive advantage by having really solid technology, because the amount of incremental sales that we could capture that are clearly technology only, it's so valuable that it doesn't even need to measure. Just keeping information organized, just having a tool that could hold people accountable, just so the sales managers know that the salespeople are doing what they're supposed to be doing, which in turn encourage salespeople to do better, because they know they're being tracked, on process compliance and things like that. So no good answer on how to track ROI, but I think anecdotally, usually technology is so inexpensive. So if you have a website or any CRM tool, it might cost you a couple of $1,000 a month for all of it. If you get one extra sale, it pays for it all. And the odds are you're going to get a lot more than one extra sale.
And there's a lot that's to be said about the fact that you just have to be in the game. You don't have to be a Wayfair. You just have to be good at what you do. And you guys have already talked about the consistency from the website to the store experience and all of that kind of stuff. We're talking about nuance here. We're talking about branding as well as anything else being a key to this thing. So it's not technology for technology's sake, but technology as a tool. My favorite line is look at it as not an end unto itself, but a means to an end, if that makes sense. Justin and Jared, I'm going to toss that on to you too. Do you have any way of measuring, or do you try to, or is it just not that consequential?
I try to measure everything, but it still is imperfect, I would say. So a lot of it has to be just, kind of anecdotal information from your sales staff, or, just, watching what goes on in your CRM system, or how customers, just watching the customer journey sometimes. I remember the first time that we used some engagement software, we had, I was actually taking a lead because I wanted to see how it would work. So I was testing out strategies. And one of the things, I was talking to someone on the phone, and I said, well, why don't you send me a picture of your living room and I'll text you and you can text me back. Next thing you know, I had more information than I've ever got from another customer, and was able to all of a sudden grow this sale way higher than what I would have imagined. And a lot of it was from that initial contact. So it's just little anecdotal information, because I think that if you try to get too granular, especially with technology, you try to say, well, my website didn't do any business yesterday online, but the store was very busy. Well, was the store busy because people had gone on your website and came in the store? It's really difficult to attribute it to one thing, I think. And that, I think that can trap you sometimes if you try to say, I want to know exactly how many dollars came from this. No, it's kind of the overall build, like Lenny said, the incremental 1 or 2 sales here and there. It adds up very rapidly.
Okay, Justin, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, that's one of the questions I asked when I started in this industry, and one of the questions I've been asking ever since I've been in it, and that people have been asking me. And I think everybody, wants there to be some silver bullet of a metric or a ratio, and I think the reality is it just doesn't exist. It's often a question of, it's kind of a chicken and the egg situation. Did more people come in my store because they were online, or did more people go visit me online because they were in my store and they were following up? And I think we've tried a bunch of different ways, and we've tried tracking, web traffic metrics to sales, but we always kind of come back to the same question. I've never really been able to put a finger on, what it is specifically and how it is affecting. But I really like, the way that Lenny put it, which is you just got to know that it works, which is a bad explanation, but I think you find there's enough anecdotal stories, and the logic and the reasoning is there that you just kind of have to track it over time and see if it's working, and see if your sales are going up. And you're not going to find that button that's going to show you this is why, this is what we did digitally, and this is what made it work, but you'll see that over time.
I am very fortunate that on a daily basis, I talk to multiple retailers a day. And so I get a lot of great feedback. And I had this come up a few weeks back, and there was a retailer that said, the way that I measure it is by just being really in touch with what's going on my floor. And so it's not a set it and forget it. It's one of those things where a lot of that is just you get a feel for it. You get kind of an idea about what feedback you're getting from your staff, from customers, et cetera. You might not be able to put it in a spreadsheet, to Justin's point, but it is that feel of it. So it's really about staying involved on the floor. The great question just came in, and I'll throw this as a toss up, because with 3 guests, I love to just kind of see who's going to jump first. So the question is that with leads that you get from the website online, how are they handled? Do you have somebody that specifically handles those and answers those calls or answers those texts and chat? Does it go to a salesperson? Is it in a rotation? How do you handle how those leads are processed? And that's a jump ball. Somebody take.
I'm happy to jump on that, because we get hundreds of leads every day through our website, and we have basically shifts. So we designate, let's say our store is open 10 to 8. So we say from 10 to 12, salesperson 1 gets all the leads, 12 to 2, salesperson 2, and so forth. That's our strategy.
We have a little bit of a laissez-faire up system that we kind of do. What we do is we let, just like customers, the whole incentive is that you should be, if you're not on the floor with a customer, you should be back at your workstation on live chat, checking your email, looking for leads that have come in while you're down, and take over those leads and start working on them, so you're always staying busy. And we've always thought about, do you have an online sales team or in-store sales team? And we like the sales team to be the same person. So if you start live chatting with someone, you can make an appointment with that person in store and keep working with the same person the whole way through. We find that to be very valuable, having one point of contact. Now, it did take us the first, I would say, maybe 6 to 8 months of when we started using our CRM more and working on these leads. We didn't really follow up with them that great, or people would drop them, or wouldn't do. It took a little bit of time to getting in a routine, and now it's, I mean, I am constantly checking, did this call that came in, did someone follow up on that? And I'm always very happy to see when it's already, a salesperson's already working on it, or they have an appointment, or I'm, checking it and 3 days later there's already a sale, so it definitely did take about 6 to 8 months though to come up with some kind of system for, how do you manage these leads and how do you make sure people are actually managing them? Especially in the beginning when people saw limited success from it for one individual, they may shy away from doing it, but you got to keep everybody on board and kind of continue along the journey, I think.
We recently just moved from having kind of a small number of dedicated employees that would handle those to having one employee that handles all of the online leads. And kind of what prompted that as much as anything was we had kind of our two primary sources were our on leads coming in from what we call our web requests. If somebody gets online, they fill out the form, they send us a request, and then also, we developed the chat function on our website. What we found is we never could really get the chat function off the ground because it became just really difficult to try to schedule busy salespeople that would have personal customers coming in the middle of what was supposed to be their time to be watching it. In addition to that, with business ticking up, they had more responsibilities with order follow-ups and things like that. So I think we came to the best solution for us was going to be to get that chat off the ground, was going to have somebody that's going to be dedicated to monitoring that chat, all day when they're here at the store. And then also made sense to kind of lump in some of those other functions of monitoring all of our requests online and following up with those leads. And it's pretty early on for us. It's only been maybe 2 months, but so far we're really happy with that. And we're getting anywhere from 10 to 30 chat conversations that are happening a week that just we weren't having those conversations before. So I think that's a real.
And this kind of goes back to. I'm sorry, Lenny, go ahead.
Can I add something to this? I also want to add the one thing that we find extremely valuable is that we take phone calls and live chats until midnight, and it's a huge competitive advantage because I think I'm a young parent. I have 2 young kids, and my life starts after 9 o'clock when they go to sleep. That's the only time, I'm buying things, I'm booking travel, and we see the same pattern in our website. After 11, we're not that busy, but 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., we're of course not as busy as during the day, but we're busy enough where it's worth it for us to have a few people on to take calls and chats and just be there to assist customers who have questions.
A question just came in, follow up, and I'll throw this out again to the 3 of you. So how do you comp that? How are you compensating the person that's doing the chat? All of these different aspects, because obviously with the customers coming in different ways, everybody's always loving that kind of insight. So talk a little bit about that, if you would, each of you.
We're a commission sales floor, so if you have downtime, we used to have people we used to call it being on phones. If you're the last person in line on the upboard, of customers coming in the day, you would be, you'd answer the phone whenever phone calls come in, and hopefully it's a sales call coming in. But now we see that the sales calls don't just ring on the phone; they may come in via live chat, they may come in via email, and so we treat those just like we would treat a sales call. That who's ever available, answer it, respond to it. And if our company policy is that if you talk to someone on the phone and put in notes in the CRM and they happen to go online at like when Lenny said at 10 o'clock at night and buy a recliner online, that salesperson that helped them on the live chat gets the credit for the sale. They get paid, and it's in their incentive to provide good service and information, because at the end of the day it benefit them.
Lenny, just
I think for us, we're the same. We're commission only. We have no shortage of people who are interested to work 8 to midnight. So it's nothing special.
Yeah, because we have a dedicated employee, we did move her over to a salary structure. I think she still sells and she'll get some commission when she sells, but she is on a salary structure. But prior to that, we were the same. It was, you're a salesperson, this is a lead, you get commission from this. This is more opportunities from you that somebody's getting. And so the people that were doing that before, we're happy to have those opportunities.
Can I ask why you decided that hybrid model of salary and commission in that particular spot now that you've dedicated the position?
Primarily because we weren't confident in that she would generate a sufficient amount of leads that would lead to sales to properly compensate her for her time. So
Okay.
we want to make sure that she's being compensated for her time. And if it gets to a point that, she's generating enough sales leads and we're generating enough sales leads for her that, it generates enough commission, I think we would reconsider that. But I think, especially starting off the first time we've had somebody in this position, not having the greatest, measurements for tracking some of those leads because they were scattered between a bunch of different people. We felt like we wanted to make sure she was taken care of.
I just want to point something out, and Justin, this might embarrass you a little bit in a good way, but I'm just gonna say this. What most people may not realize that have tuned in is that Interiors Home is one of our 2020 Retailers of the Year. And when you think about Retailers of the Year, and this is nominated from others and voted on by peers, there's sometimes an assumption that, oh, well, they got it knocked and they're doing everything perfectly 100% of the time. What you've heard here today is very transparent, and I just really appreciate the fact that you've said, hey, there's some areas that we're thinking about, we're not sure about. Here's how we have approached this. But I love the pragmatism of it. You're not just flying into something and throwing money at it. You sat there and said, we should probably get into this chat game. And as you started that, you've built it in a way where an employee will be compensated, not certain how rocky that's going to be or not, and then you can change it going around. So I just think that's just a lesson of your adaptability, you and your family, everybody running that thing. And that's just a little takeaway that I just wanted to mention. I think that's critically important. Lenny, I got to ask you something too, because we talked about this whole comp thing and talking about this. I will never forget that when the pandemic first hit last year, that a very large retailer, and I'll tell you who it was because he was on the show, but Keith Koenig joined us from City Furniture. And what Keith did when everything shut down is he took his best salespeople and he put them on the phone. And if we would have had this conversation 2 years ago, we're always talking about all these other great technological pieces. The phone is still, when you're talking about leveraging these technologies and everything, talk for a minute about that. The phone, I mean, it's where you guys started, but how, it's low tech, but how important is that in bridging all this great stuff that you're dealing with, technological website and everything else, to that sale? Talk about that, because I think that we kind of forget that that's a good basic tool, and maybe we don't just throw that one out with everything else that we're talking about.
Of course. There are studies, when we do training for our CRM system, there are studies that we cite a couple of studies, and they show how important it is to use the phone, how important it is to follow up with customers. So I think, a good salesperson is always a good salesperson. And we always say, hey, do we want them on the floor? Do we want them on the phone? But they're just as good on the phone as they are on the floor, because the main job is understanding what the customer needs and helping them find what they're looking for. And I think, the dream, for our website leads, the phone call is the most valuable lead, because that's the customers on your website. They're looking at a specific product, and now they're calling to ask questions. And you gotta be available to pick up the phone call. We very closely look at how many rings it takes for us to pick up a phone call, how many missed phone calls we get, how many voicemails we get, how quickly we're responding to voicemails, and then everything that kind of cascades down from the perspective of following up, because people generally don't buy in the first phone call, and the sale is made on phone call number 5 and number 6, and half the salespeople never follow up with a customer, and out of the people who follow up with a customer, 90% of them follow up only once. So I think effective phone skills from a sales, this is a webinar about sales, so effective phone skills from a sales perspective is super important.
I mean, the subject matter of this webinar is leveraging technologies to close the sale. And if, as you said, and this just fits in with exactly what you said, if your website isn't obvious as to how you can connect me, the customer, how I can connect with you phone wise, I mean, yes, you talked about chat and others, but that's, the phone number everywhere. I mean, that's one of the biggest takeaways from this. And that is leveraging the technology to close the sale and utilizing the good old telephone service. Jared and Justin, any thoughts about that as well? Because I think that's sometimes that low tech piece is critical.
It's the best thing. If you can get the people on the phone, you got a good chance of closing them. So even in live chat, we may find an excuse to call the customer and ask their permission. And some of my sales staff, their goal when they're on live chat is to get the customer on the phone. That's their goal.
Justin?
Yeah, nothing to add. I would just say that, not related to closing the sale, but, as it relates to technology and the phone specifically would be, as technology can make it easier to communicate with somebody, it can also make it more impersonal. So, when we're doing order updates, sometimes it's okay to shoot an email, but sometimes you need to make a phone call. And I think that's an important thing to remember is that, you can't let the technology take away from the relationship there.
That's been the theme since we started talking almost an hour ago. That's terrific. Another question that came in. This is technologically related to technology in the store. Anybody on this call utilize a kiosk? That was the question that came up. Thoughts about kiosks as a sales tool in store.
Yeah, we use a couple of different kiosks. So we have, for example, we have a kiosk for financing applications, which I think is a great tool. Customers can sit down, they can complete their application, financing right there on a kiosk. It's a touchscreen, it's very easy to use and get an immediate response. And then we've also used a couple of different kiosks, one that's, a video catalog basically. The customers can browse through the catalog on a very large touchscreen, which is very helpful. We actually have a couple for a couple different manufacturers. And then also we have a couple of different kiosks that are, basically running manufacturer product configurators, and they are also great tools. You can sit there, work with the client. You've got some of them have, very interactive features, draping technology, and it can be a great way to pick out, some selections for furniture along with your salesperson and put together pricing. And so those are great tools to use.
So anybody else, or did you guys? I saw you kind of nodding that you don't.
We've never had any kiosks in our store, but what we have is our sales staff has Microsoft Surface tablets, and we have what we call docking stations around the building with 60-inch TVs. So if you're in the in the dining area, you just dock your computer screen in, or you could be working at a table with a customer and then using a product configurator, and then you dock in and you show them it in a big picture and what it is. And we find that allows us to be flexible. When companies come out with new technologies, we're just simply using a laptop connected to a large TV screen, basically.
Cool. Lenny, any thoughts on that? Or are you just not a kiosk guy?
Also to Jared, so we have workstations with computers where we could sit with customers and show them, different products. And our website is actually in the stores. Our website is our point of sale system. So if a customer wants to buy something, we just enter the order into the website. So all the kiosk type of information is basically on our website.
So as we're kind of winding down, I was kind of wanting to save this question for the tail end of this. I hope you're gonna understand kind of where I'm going here, because when we started today, and I was asking you about why you guys embrace technology, there were things like efficiencies, speeding up the process, giving tools to the salesperson, access from it, everywhere, and the tech adding to the relationship. Now we factor in this beast called the supply chain issue and delivery delays. So is there a way to utilize this technology? I mean, you've got all these efficiencies. You want it to be an easier process for the salesperson, for the customer. Does that help in this disappointing process of the length of time? Does it help to offset it? Are you compensating for the unevenness of some of the transactions by making sure that everything is at their fingertips? Jared, I see you kind of nodding here.
Yeah.
Am I making sense? I know that's I'm kind of pulling things out of it.
So our business is 100% custom order. We used to not stock very much furniture. We used to pick out what you want, we'll have it to you in 6 weeks. Well, now that's become 6 months, and that's untenable. But we still find that there's a lot of customers out there that want to customize their furniture. And we can do by having tablets, everyone has a laptop. When you're on the floor picking out a fabric, immediately check the fabric to see if it's in stock. If it's out of stock for 6 months, don't sell it. So what we can do is, rather than the old days of entering an order and then finding out when it's acknowledged that it's going to be out of stock for six months, and then you have the customer come back in, and now you've created a negative situation. If you can say, hey, here's 4 fabric options. 3 of them are in stock and will be here in 6 months. The 4th option is going to be out for 8 to 10. and they go, well, you know what, I'm willing to wait the 8 to 10 months because that's what I really want. You gave them the option and you set their expectations, so you're not constantly changing expectations, which leads to cancellations.
Okay, Justin, what about you? I mean, first of all, thank you for that answer, because that's exactly how you're leveraging the technology in a way to try to ease those concerns. Justin, what about y'all?
Yeah, I would mirror what he said a little bit. It's just that the most important thing is having accurate information and having that information quickly available. And that's whether that's for an order update. You know, if you got to give them bad news, you want to at least make sure that it's accurate and you can get the bad news. Customer doesn't want to hear, well, let me look into it and get back to you in 3 days. You know, you need to at least be able to get them a good response quickly, and that will at least give them some confidence in you. If they're not happy with the wait, they'll have confidence that you're on track of the order and you're keeping up with it.
So if I'm a business owner, I'm looking for the technology to utilize and that sort of thing, and putting things in the hand of the salesperson, that real time, get an idea about what's available. If that's not part of what you're doing, then it sounds to me like then you're just going to set yourself up for a disappointed customer at some point in the process. Lenny, what are your thoughts about that?
So one of the things that we did during the pandemic, and I wish we would have done it earlier, but we've actually enhanced our inventory integrations with our vendor partners. So in the past, we only knew what's in stock today. So basically we focused on what's in stock today, and that's it. So our latest integrations show our salespeople directly on their tablets not only what's in stock today in our warehouse, what's in stock today in the vendor's warehouse, and also what's coming into our warehouse when it's coming in, what's coming into the vendor warehouse when it's coming in, and it's all on the product page for the salesperson to see, so they could give the customer the correct information without having to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, wow. You know, we may have saved the best for last there, because you talk about the power of the technology to close a sale. You know, it's one thing when that transaction is done, but if you can set up that expectation for the customer so that delay is kind of built in, and we're not having to recall them many times. I mean, it sounds to me like you all just lit up, and this is like the special sauce that you've got to have. So is that just a must-have at this point, do you think, in doing business in 2021 in home furnishings?
Yeah, I think today customers are much more focused not on what they want, but they're focused on what's available now. So you have to have that information easily accessible by everyone. You know, your website, your salespeople, just so the customer could see it too.
Gotcha. Lenny, I got to ask you real quick. Artwork behind you, is that all the kids?
Yeah.
Kids stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, love that. Appreciate that. Just had to ask. I want to point one thing out as we wind up today, is that Justin, Jared, and Lenny, their companies are all members of HFA, and there is power in this association. I know it says join a community of 1,400 retailers. We've crested 1,500 now. It's a place where you can share information like this, not just in webinars, but in many other ways. Consider it. myhfa.org/join. It's simple. And I think that it'll be one of the best decisions you've made. I want to thank this entire group that's joined us today. Justin Lehman from Interiors Home. Please say hello to your dad, Todd. He was the one that accepted the Retailer of the Year award, but you guys do some amazing work up there. Appreciate that. Jared Simon from Simon's Furniture. All transparency. His dad and I are the same age, and so we're in that same era. So we talk a lot about the same stuff, but great stuff there. And Lenny K, listen, thank you so much. You know, you do wear a number of different hats when it comes to not just retail, but information technologies, et cetera. And I just really appreciate your input today as well. Want to let everybody remind you, myhfa.org/webinar. You will find this and every other webinar we've done there. Do share it if you can. But as always, I'd like to wish everyone good health, good sales, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for joining us.